Welcome to Espresso Yourself, Mom, Teacher, and Runner Talk, the podcast where lesson plans meet lattes and long runs.
We're four women juggling the journey of motherhood, teaching personal goals, and a whole lot of caffeine.
Here, we keep it real, the messy, the meaningful, and the moments in between.
So grab your coffee and join us for honest conversations, a few laughs, and a reminder that you're not in this alone.
Welcome back. This week, we're going to be talking about pregnancy journeys and struggles and joys. But before we get into our topic, let's catch up. Does anybody have any exciting news or something that they'd like to share this week?
So my exciting thing for the week is not really work related. Work was great. I had a better week this week. But I help run the run club here in my town, and the president really hasn't been present. So I've been running a lot of it for the last 3-4 months. And so I've been pretty consistent of just being very present on social media and posting things. And this Saturday we had close to 60 people at our Saturday run. And I was just I'm standing there looking at all these people and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's paying off. All this just consistent hard work and reaching out and talking to people, just looking around, and there's so many new faces. And if y'all only knew the adversity I have faced with this run club and being vice president, because there are some people who are not fans of me being vice president of this run club. So the fact that I've been able to just fight that adversity and, be able to grow this group as large as what it is, it's a huge win. And so yesterday I just got to see it and it made me very, very happy. So
I saw your picture.
that's my win for the week.
I saw your picture. That was pretty cool with the sunset in the background. Or was it the sunrise? Was it the sunset or the sunrise?
Sunrise. Well, there was one last week with the stars, but then this week it was just the group was so big. I was like, oh my gosh, can I fit them in the picture?
Cool.
And we did, but it was really cool. And connecting with all the different people, and now we're getting a lot of the younger crowd in there. And so it's cool because for a while it was just, no offense to the older crew, but it was a lot of older people. And so now I'm like, okay, we're building this younger generation. We're bringing it in. And so it's good. It's good growth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kudos to you. But my question is, who would not like you as president? I'm just sitting here I don't know in my right mind, who would not like you? So there's clearly something wrong with them.
You got it.
I've come to the conclusion you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Being in any type of leadership role, you're not everybody's going to like what you do, but I just kind of put my head down the last few months and just kept going and pushing forward. And the naysayers, the haters can say what they want, but what I've been doing is working. And truly, at the end of the day, I'm not making it about me. I'm making it about the run club and the run community and the people we're bringing in. I'm like, what can I do for them? How can we make this better for them? And that's just kind of where I put my focus, and it's clearly paying off. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm doing it right, I guess.
Yeah. Oliver had his first Jack's game that is with his travel ball team. He was so nervous, but I got him, his game was on my birthday, and Hayes also had a game. And so my husband, I told him, I'm like, I want to go to his travel ball team game because I am the one that's been dragging him to all this baseball stuff this summer, and I want to be there, to support him. And so I'd actually got him this little knitted ball. It's kind of like one of those support little character guys, and it's a baseball. And it says go hit big, don't ever let go, basically a pep talk. And it was just I'll always be your number one fan. And then I found those baseball necklaces that they like to wear, and it's the colors of his Jack's team. So I gave him the ball before the game and the necklace after. They ended up winning. But I think it relieved a lot of his nerves after playing his first game. His very first time up to bat, though, first pitch. Well, first of all, the umpire, because he's little for his age, the umpire just goes, "Oh my," because it's going to be a very small strike zone. It's going to be more challenging. And I'm sure it throws the pitcher off too, but very first pitch, he gets hit right in the ribs. And everyone's like,
Oh.
but this, I'm telling you, this little man, he is like so headstrong and so dedicated. He was just like, ugh. And then he just keeps running to first base, like, I'm fine.
Oh.
Yeah. And then he got walked the second time because of balls. And he's just like, but Mom, I didn't get a hit, but I did get to score and I did get to be on base. And the first time they went out in the field, they put him in on second base, which was huge. Like, I wasn't sure if they were going to put him in the field. I thought it would be outfield, but he got to play second base, and I was just so proud of him because, you know, he's a little underdog that's just shown up, and yeah. So that was a fun way to celebrate my birthday, minus there were some other incidents with the kids on that day too, because they were not the best listeners, and I was kind of upset with them prior to the game. And then there was a pee incident as well that day, so it was just one thing after another. And I won't go into that because I don't want to embarrass my child. But for those that know, they know. I'll just leave it at that. So yeah. And then more games this week. Just games.
Every day. Yeah, we're karate here and piano lessons every day. And Saturday afternoons now. That was just added as well.
But I keep saying, as much as it's stressful at times and it's very busy, I would rather my kids be involved in those kind of things than coming home and just getting on TV or tablet. You know, if they ask, like, well, when we get home, can we watch an episode? I don't feel guilty letting them because they've been active all night. So, but it's good watching them.
Well, this week, after we've been in our second week of school, I got my first cold.
Oh.
Joys.
In fact, my husband and I both got colds at the same time, which is never good. In any situation, it's never good when you and your spouse or partner have a cold at the same time, but it started out with one kid and it went to another, and then our students, and then we got it. And so I think we're on the mend, but it really kicked both of us. We are just so tired, and everything is about to get even busier with Scouts is starting this week for our older son, and then baseball starts in a few weeks, and we're just on the go. And I'm looking at our schedule, like, you have Allison just busy every single night and trying to figure out how to keep up with all of it. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff going on this week where I'm going to be at school until 6:00 every night, and then sometimes there's something to do afterwards. So I'm hoping that this cold kicks itself and I feel 100% sooner rather than later, because I can't function like this. But
well, you don't sound that bad. So that's a plus.
I am better than I have been. Just drinking more water and drinking tea, which I do not drink at all. But you know, I sang this morning at church, so I had to make sure that my throat was good and everything just in the head was really good, because otherwise that wouldn't have sounded good. So that's the only like big news to report this week.
Yeah, I'm not a tea drinker either, but Starbucks medicine ball, like the honey, and that is like my only tea, and that's my go-to when I'm sick or when my throat hurts. Otherwise, I am not a tea drinker either.
I think that is like the teacher lifesaver dream whenever we all get sick. Any teacher I know, we get sick. Did you get a medicine ball? Did you go get a medicine ball? Like, that's the first thing people say. So, no, that is, I think it needs to be rebranded teacher cold sickness lifesaver.
Do any of you use like emergency or that I'm telling you, airborne They work. They really do. Well, I had in service on Tuesday and I left with a stomach bug. So I'm kind of there with you. And this one kind of lasted a while, about 4 days. And usually they're pretty quick for me. I wasn't throwing up, but I had like every other symptom of the stomach bug. So I was functional, but in pain and like code brown, like we talked about last week. So it was, my first day back and got sick already. And that's one thing that worries me about teaching virtually is that my immune system, knock on wood, was very strong. And now I'm worried that it won't be quite as strong and I'll start picking things up again. So hopefully that won't happen. I might have to just start drinking the emergency or airborne every day, at least during cold season and sick season. But yeah, I'm finally feeling, I think yesterday is when I really started to feel better. So that's my excitement for the week.
I know. I kept
That's
seeing your stories and I was like, oh my gosh, she got sick like 2 days in. What the heck?
Exactly. So hopefully I got that out of the way.
that's definitely going around. I've had kids out because
Oh,
of
wow.
sickness, and it's like, but for me, only having basically 18 kids, when you got a couple kids sick, it's like 16 kids. People will walk in my room and they're like, wow, it's quiet. Like, I'm like, yeah, there's only 16 kids in here. Like, what do you expect? But I know my husband always says, oh, you just bring home all the germs and then I get sick. But now, like, having both boys there and me, it's like bound to happen. But we tend to not get sick, and then he gets it because, again, our immune systems. But then when you do get it, it's awful.
Mhm.
But yeah,
So I was talking to a librarian this week at one of my meetings, and she said that half of her campus has COVID. And I was like, already? But she said the teachers and kids are like out with COVID. I was shocked. Like, we've only been in 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, they are passing around COVID. Cool. And so down here, COVID now is just like a whatever. Like, so many people are just like, nah, we're fine.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy that 2 weeks in, COVID is being passed around the school. So it was an elementary, so they're probably closer in proximity. I haven't heard anything from the junior highs yet, but
What's
elementaries.
interesting is the kindergarten kids I have. I don't know if I talked about this last week, but all their birthdays are in 2019 and 2020, so they're all COVID babies.
Those are COVID babies.
Yeah, I have a student. I remember, sometimes dates just stick in your mind, and March 13th.
Yeah.
I remember
Friday the
13th was the day that the world shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my students has a birthday March 14th, 2020. And I'm looking at all of these dates and it's like, well, going into the hospital and not being able to have anyone there when you're having this baby. I got lucky with my younger one who was born in October of 2021 that my husband was able to come in, but no one else was allowed to be there in the stay and, anything like that. But yeah, our kindergarten babies this year, they're all COVID babies.
Yeah. So when the world shut down, I had just found out I was pregnant with my youngest. And I thought, oh, okay. But by the time I have him, like, this is all going to be water under the bridge. But that was not the case, because when I had him, it was only my husband that was allowed in there. We weren't supposed to have any visitors. And then they did lift that to where you could have one. So it had just been my dad's birthday because Hayes was born 5 days after his birthday. So I let him be the visitor kind of as like his birthday gift. But the ridiculous thing was I was in labor, contractions, like crazy. And they had to do the swab, the COVID test for me as I'm having contractions. It was miserable. But my husband didn't have to have anything. I'm like, how does that even make sense? He didn't have to get COVID tested. And I'm sure part of it is because I'm the one with the baby and the touching, but still, I am in labor and you are torturing me, but he has nothing. But yeah, it was still COVID. And then I remember he was probably only a month old if that, well, I would have just been coming back from maternity leave, and I got COVID. And then my whole class had to go virtual because I did small groups. So I was in contact with every single student. And I remember my boss expecting me to teach virtually with my baby at home while I have COVID. It was a nightmare. It was awful. But yeah, we've got these COVID babies coming up.
Yeah, I had to get swabbed. They told me I had a C-section with both my kids, but I had to get swabbed and have the test come back negative 72 hours before I was due to have my C-section. I was like, well, what are you going to do if I have COVID? I'm still coming in to have this baby. And I guess there were protections that they
probably
needed to,
extra.
right. So, but I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm so pregnant. I have to go stand at this line in the hospital to get this COVID test. But anyhow, it feels so close, but it also feels so far away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were looking at pictures not that long ago, and there was a picture of my oldest holding a banana up to his face like a mask. And I was laughing and showing him. He's like, what do you mean a mask? I'm like, you used to have to wear a mask. Because he would have been 2.5 around that time. And he doesn't really remember it. So, I guess that's kind of a good thing. We will always remember it. But yeah, it's like, you guys all had to wear masks. And we were at the doctor so much because that's also when my oldest had to have his second surgery. And we were both able to be in the waiting room during his surgery. Post-surgery, we were both able to go back to the recovery area. But as soon as they transferred up to his room, one of us had to leave. We couldn't both be there at Riley, which was awful. So my husband actually went and hung out at the hotel room, and I stayed in there until it was bedtime. And my mom drove down, picked me up, and my husband stayed overnight because they let you both be there, but only one could be there at a time. So that was hard. That was so hard. But even my first, when I had him, we were only allowed one visitor at a time because it was flu season and the hospital had a bunch of restrictions. So I never really got to experience that. But I've heard that it's probably better with all the visitors in and out. You get more rest. I don't know.
My son was in kindergarten that year, so I was trying to help him with his schoolwork while trying to navigate my own class. And he had to have like a drive-by graduation. And so he's in 6th grade now. I can't believe that. But yeah, he was a kindergartner during that time. And yeah, he remembers very vividly. We wore masks for another school year and a half, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, fun times.
All right, so we kind of touched a little bit in our catch up on some of our pregnancy stories and our children. We were kind of hitting on the whole COVID and our babies. So if we can just open up by talking a little bit about our pregnancy journeys and kind of lead into some ups and some downs. I know I don't have quite the experiences as you guys do with struggles. My first was kind of a one and done. It was definitely we got married June 3rd and he was born February 18th. So you guys could do that math. I thought I was going to struggle getting pregnant because I had not had periods, got put on medicine. I had all these issues. So I was like, okay, I know that it's been in my family history of having issues. My sister didn't get pregnant right away. My cousins have had miscarriages. I want to start right away just in case. Well, we did not have to wait. It was literally, I could pinpoint the day that we conceived. And so then when we went to go have our second, my husband was like, okay, I think we should start trying. I'm like, no, I am not ready. Like, it happened way too fast the first time. I'm not ready. I was like, I want Oliver to at least be 2. He needs to be 2 before we start. And in hindsight, my husband appreciates this now. But we started trying before he was 2, and we didn't get pregnant right away. And I think it took us like 3 or 4 months, which is not a very long time for, people that have struggled. But for me, getting pregnant so easy the first time, like I was finally experiencing that 2-week wait, and then it's not, and then you have to wait a whole nother month, and those struggles. But by the time we did finally get pregnant, it was actually the week that Oliver turned 2, and I was like, well, see, God knew. I said I wasn't getting pregnant until he was 2, and by golly, we didn't get pregnant. Now looking back, my husband's like, yeah, I don't know if I could have done it any earlier, because when you're pregnant and running after a little one, it's a lot of work and it's exhausting and you are tired. And I don't know how people do it back to back, but yeah, so we didn't have, the long wait like a lot of people who struggle do. But I just know with those few months that I did, I feel for everybody that has ever had those challenges, because it is heartbreaking. And when you go years with that, I can only imagine.
It's interesting. So I have 2 boys. Carson is going to be 9 in November, and we were able to conceive him naturally. I want to say it took 6 or 7 months from us trying, and I'm not necessarily a research kind of person, but I did do research on how to track. I knew my period was regular. I always got it on time. That's just how my body works. But then I was like, okay, we'll try, but I didn't really know much about it. And then I read about the ovulation strips and all these things, and obviously I can't go back and change it, but that trying to conceive got so much in my head because the ovulation strips, and you're testing, and then now you have this window, and then it becomes pretty pressured, and then it doesn't become fun. And that 2-week wait, and then the downside of that 2-week wait was an emotional roller coaster that I didn't know I was going to go through. But it was even harder for my husband because he couldn't understand the roller coaster that your body goes through every month naturally. But when you get so upset, and then when you work in a school where it's predominantly women, and it's not like this in my school now, but every time someone got pregnant in my last school, they would bring in treats, and there would be a big announcement in the lounge, and you walk in the lounge, someone would send an email, treats in the lounge, and I'm like, another pregnancy announcement, and it's not me. And it was kind of a woe is me situation, because you're hoping and hoping and hoping until it finally does happen, and then it's an even crazier ride from there. But my second pregnancy, we started trying. I told my husband I wanted to start trying when our older son turned 2. I said, I want them to be close in age. We need to, or maybe he was, I don't know, 1 or 2. I said, I want them to be close in age. And my husband was like, okay, I guess. So we tried for an entire year, because that's how long my OB said we needed to try until we could do something else. So I went to the doctor and I said, okay, we've tried for a year. Now what can I do? And that started the whole process. And when I'm like, okay, now I'm going through this infertility journey, and that was an entire road that I had no idea how to navigate or process. And I was not prepared for it. One of the things that I needed to do for insurance, and I should put this in there, my insurance from my last district, we had Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And the program that my district personally had, and I was on an HMO, covered 100% of the infertility process.
Wow.
We're going to talk more about this next week, but IUI, IVF, all the tests, everything that you need to go through it. And I know it's so crazy for me to say that, but it truly is the only reason why we have our second kid, because it was 100% paid for, and we felt like it was okay to go through this long process. But anyhow, I had to go and get this test done to see if either of my tubes were blocked. And I thought, well, my doctor's less than a mile away from my school. Okay, I can go in, have an early appointment. We had specials right away, so I just needed 10 minutes of coverage, someone to bring my kids to specials, and I'll just go to school right afterwards. It's not a big deal. Oh my gosh, wrong. If you are going through an infertility journey, do not ever schedule a doctor appointment and then go into work. It doesn't matter if it's an appointment that's going to come out negative or positive. You need to process everything, and you cannot go to work and meet the needs of others while you're going through this. So what happened was, it was a very easy procedure. They put dye inside me, and then they're looking through like an ultrasound machine to see if the dye goes through your tube or if it gets blocked. So it turned out that one of my tubes was blocked. And I had no idea that I would be so emotional about it, but I walked into work, and like I said, it's less than a mile away, straight down the street from my school, and I was a mess. And I went into work at, 9 o'clock, and I had to get through the whole day because I wasn't prepared to write sub plans, or, my class was great that year, but there was still 25 of them that, I needed to take care of their needs that day. And it was a lot to go through. And that was only the start of the journey. Then you had to be referred to a fertility clinic, and it's like all of these things that were piled on top of another. And I had no idea that this fertility journey was going to last 3 years. And I know people go through it for longer, but it was designated that it's second infertility, where you can conceive naturally with your first child, but not with your second. And I had no idea that it was so prevalent in women, because as soon as I got into Facebook groups and was trying to understand all of this, because it was taking so long, that it's pretty common. And I wonder why. It could be environmental factors. It could be anything. I'm not sure. Maybe people just didn't know about it. But that was the start of that part of my journey. And there was a lot that I had to learn, not only medically, but emotionally, about how to get through things. Because like I said, pregnancy announcements at my last school were huge. And one time someone announced their pregnancy, and another person who could get pregnant right away. And we were going on a field trip that day, and I made the mistake of going into the lounge, and I came out crying, and I couldn't wipe away the tears fast enough. And my students were like, "Oh, why are you crying?" But I had to pull myself together. So the emotional roller coaster that you go through trying to conceive in regular life, and it bleeds into every other part of your life, is just something that can be explained, but can't be explained until you've gone through it.
And, kind of going off of that, I know Rachel mentioned it last week when she was talking about her pregnancy test and not expecting it because she had been training really hard and how that truly affects our bodies as women who are training and running. Because when I was trying to get pregnant with my second, I had lost a bunch of weight again from my first pregnancy, was working out, lost a bunch of weight, and I stopped having periods, which happened before we got, well, no, it happened when my sister got married, which is why I completely went off birth control because I realized it was masking a lot of my issues by being on it. So I just have never been on it since. But this time around, I was not getting off of birth control, so there really was no reason for me to not have periods. So I had went and talked to my doctor because I was also having bladder issues at the time, and I wanted to get that figured out, but he knew we were wanting to have a second. He's like, so I probably wouldn't look down that road of doing any reconstruction bladder wise until you're done. But I ended up having to get put back on medicine. I can't remember exactly what medicine he put me on, but then they had to do like ultrasounds and things like that. And come to find out, my uterus, my lining was too thin. And so they had to put me on medicine to thicken my uterus back up
Yep.
in order for me to even be able to have periods, which it was just insane. The things you don't think about. And I know I had a few friends that struggled. Several, like you were saying, that they're on their second pregnancy and they're struggling. And I always would say, like, go get an ultrasound, go check this, go check. There's just so many factors that it's crazy because like we wouldn't have been able to even start when he wanted to because of my body and me having to get myself back into a regular state to even start trying. So it's crazy.
So, Becky, you mentioned not going into the lounge. Um, I haven't been to a baby shower in over 10 years. I refuse to go to baby showers. Even my own sisters and my cousins, I don't go to their baby showers. And like to this day, I still can't. So,
Guys, I did not realize how hard this episode was going to be. Like, I am over here crying. Like, I've been crying since Becky started talking. So, Katie, how long have you guys been trying?
7.5 years. We've been married 8, and we had I thought we had a scare, I think a year before we got married. And so I think that's when we knew, ooh, we really want to have kids. And so a year after being married, we found out I was pregnant and I miscarried, but it was just kind of like a early miscarriage. So I was like, okay, no biggie, people always lose their first ones or, like I thought that was common. And then a year later, I got pregnant again. And this one I was like, hey, this is it. So we went to California. It was in June, like beginning of June. We went to California and I started to spot on the trip. And so I called my doctor and she's like, okay, when you come back, we want to see you. And I said, okay. And we weren't I was active, but I knew to scale back on the running. And so I went in and they drew blood, they looked at numbers and they're like, oh, well, your numbers are going up. You're fine. And then a week later, I remember it was a Friday night and I was at home and I started cramping really badly. And I just was like, my pain scale is stupid high. And we figured that out. And so I fought off probably the worst cramps of my entire life, which we come to find out probably could have killed me. But I fought it off at home. And then I called the doctor on Monday and I was like, hey, I had these really bad cramps. I have a little spotting. They said, okay, come in. And they didn't do an ultrasound. They're like, well, we already have your ultrasound scheduled for later, so just wait. And I said, okay. And they drew numbers and like, well, your numbers are still going up. You should be fine. I was like, okay. And so then this was like another 4 days later, my PA calls me because a different doctor saw me, not my normal doctor. Um, my PA sees me and she calls me. She's like, hey, I really want you to come in like this day. She's like, your numbers are going up, but it's not making sense. She's like, there's, she's like, I almost feel like you're miscarrying, but it's not making sense. So I walked in, it was a Wednesday, and I was on summer break. And so they did the ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech got really quiet. I was like, what's going on? And I don't know how to read an ultrasound. So I was just like, okay, whatever. So then she sits me down, goes to my doctor, and I wasn't even supposed to see my doctor this day. Like I was supposed to see the PA. And my doctor is like, hey, come back here. And so she sat down and she's like, so you're not going home. You're going to the ER. And I was like, okay, what's wrong? And she goes, you have an ectopic and it burst, but it clotted itself off. And so for 2 weeks, I had lived with a clotted off tube that had burst. And so she's like, I want you going straight to the ER. I'm calling them. And at this point, I'm still walking around. Like, I had gone to the gym earlier in the day. Like, I was moving around like a normal human being. Like, I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Like, I could have died a week and a half ago. And so we get to the ER, and like the nurses are like, wait, what? You just walk, like, they were expecting me to be like bent over in agonizing pain. And I was like, yeah, I'm here. What do you need to do? And they were like, are you serious? You're walking around? I was like, yeah, I can walk to the chair. You want me to walk to the chair? And they're just like, this unicorn of a person just walked in the door and can move around with something that should have killed her. Um, and so the next morning, my doctor, it was her hospital day. And so she was able to go in. And when she went in, she found tons of scar tissue that was like covering my tubes, everything. And she goes, you have endometriosis. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, you have endometriosis. And so they removed that tube, and I still had, that was my left one. So they removed my left one. Um, and so she's like, okay, well, I want to run the test that you were talking about, Becky. She's like, I want to run that to check your other tube just to make sure like you're good to go. Um, but I think the trauma, like after that one, I was just like so in shock. Like, wait, what? Because I lost a tube, lost a pregnancy I thought was going to make it, and then being diagnosed with endometriosis. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and so just doing all this research of what it was. Fast forward well, I went in for the HCG, and I luckily took the whole day for that one, but I have another story where I did not take the whole day. But that was pretty painful. Like, that's not fun. And that tube was clear, so they were like, well, you're good to go. And so my doctor was like, hey, look, they said it was good. You're good to go. So we started, when I was ready, we started trying again. And it wasn't like we were actively trying. It was like, if it happens, it happens. And so that next May, this was, I think, May of 2021. No, 2019. May of 2019. And sure enough, at this point, I was like, okay, I got a positive pregnancy test, but I was really mindful about things. I wanted numbers ran. I was like, no, we need to have this. And so when I, of course, started, feeling things were off, I immediately went to the doctor and I was like, hey, they started looking at numbers, like your numbers aren't going up like they should. And so sure enough, they pulled me in and they said, okay, we think you're having another ectopic. And I was like, okay. And so this time they're like, we caught it early, so we're going to we need to end the pregnancy so we can save your tube. And so I said, okay. And this is where I went in the middle of the day to the doctor. I did not call in. I did not like get a sub. I literally went on a long lunch break. And so I remember them giving me the shot and saying, okay, I'm going back to work. And I went back to work. And why I did it, I don't know. And I went and taught for the rest of the day. And then the next day I tried to go to school and I couldn't. But they ended the pregnancy, so I was miscarrying. And so I was in pain, like it was hurting. And, um, And that year, that was tough because that group of kids, um, they knew. Um, there's, and it was his mom. I was good friends with his mom. She saw on Facebook, so she reached out. And he said, "Hey, Miss Leon's missing. Do you know what's going on?" She goes, "Yeah." She told him. And he came up. It was like, this was literally the last 2 weeks of school. So I'm like, fighting this one at home. Last couple weeks of school. And I remember the last day of school, he came up and he just started crying. And he was like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Uh, and he was 12 and he knew.
Oh,
Like, when a 12-year-old comes up and was like, "I'm so sorry." So, sorry. But that was a really good group of kids because they truly like got it. And junior high kids are like, do they get feelings? And they did. Um, and so that one's where I really started dealing with a lot of resentment and bitterness towards a lot of people who were just like, "I'm pregnant," and where I really I cut off some family because they were not understanding, and they didn't support me. And so there was a few years where I didn't go to holidays. Um, I didn't want to participate in anything family wise, and COVID kind of was my out. Because I was like, "Oh, COVID, don't have to be there." Uh, but even to this day, I still don't like, I struggle with relationships with some of my family members because they were not supportive. And then there was my last one. And this one happened about 3.5 years ago, where it was in February and we got pregnant. And I was like, "Oh, wow." Considering, we saved this tube. And sure enough, we went in, I started spotting, and I went immediately to the ER. I was like, "I don't need to." And they said, "Yeah, if we don't stop this now, your tube's going to burst." And I said, "Okay." And at this point, I guess, like, I don't know if you want to call it like callousness or just like, "Okay, do what you got to do." But I also think it was a God thing, this one as well. I'm sitting in the emergency room waiting room, and I see a girl I worked with walking in. And I said, "Hey, are you okay?" Or I saw her walking. I didn't get to text. Like, so I texted her. I said, "Hey, are you okay?" She goes, "No, I'm not." She's like, "I'm having a miscarriage and it's an ectopic." And so we were both in the ER at the same time having an ectopic, and she had to get her tube removed. And so I guess I almost went into just texting her and supporting her and like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, what do you need?" And she's like, "You're about to get yours taken out too." And I was like, "But I'm okay. Like, I've done it once before." Um, just texting her. And crazy enough, she went first. And I get to the anesthesiologist and I said, "Well, the girl you just sent in before me, I'm friends with her." And they look at me and I said, "Yeah, we both have ectopics, but this is my second." And they're like, "Wait, how do you?" And I was like, "We've worked together." And they're like, "Did y'all know you were coming?" And I was like, "No, we're at separate schools now. Like, she's in a whole other district, but we just happen to be same ER." And Houston's got a huge medical center. So y'all have to understand, like, for us to be at the same hospital, same time, same day, was just crazy. Um, and so, and we go to the same doctor, shockingly. And so our doctor did both of our ectopic removals, but it was a weird trauma bonding experience, because even the day after, we're texting each other, "Hey, how you feeling? Hey, are you okay?" Just texting like checking on one another. But after that one, I've had a lot of time to, I guess, just deal with knowing like, or I guess grieving, knowing that I can't have kids the normal way. Like IVF is the only way. And so we don't have jobs that make us bukus of money. My husband doesn't have a job that makes bukus of money. And so, you talk about resentment towards people who can get pregnant easily. I also have resentment towards people who can just go throw money and be like, oh, let me go do IVF. And I'm like, but I can't. I'm probably going to have to send myself into some more serious debt just to have kids. And I'm not guaranteed. It's a chance. Um and it like sucks because there's grants out there, but they make you write this novel explaining why you deserve this IVF grant. And I feel like I shouldn't have to write a novel explaining why I deserve it. I just want a chance to have a kid. Like, that's all. And
You're just going to
so,
have to give them the link to this podcast episode. That might be easier.
right. So they can just listen to the whole story. Right now, we are hoping to start by the end of the year. I really kind of just threw myself into running and just running marathons, but I'm not getting any younger, and we've really got to start. So, and I think I'm ready, but I also know that's going to be a lot of like heavy times as well, because it's an emotional roller coaster. All the tests, all the things you've got to just like
Yeah.
pump into yourself. It's going to be a roller coaster, but
So that whole journey is something that I am not familiar with. Whereas, like, I know that Becky, you have some experience in that. But just hearing your story and a lot of that you shared with us tonight that we didn't even know, which is why I think we were all so emotional for you tonight. It just gives me a whole new perspective. I can't even. But knowing what you went through with your tubes with IVF, is that something that will, I guess, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have the knowledge or experience, but is that more successful to where you wouldn't have a topic or whatever?
so there's
Or
no
how
more
does that
risk
work?
of an ectopic because the tubes are gone. And so an ectopic is when
Both
it forms
tubes?
like in your tubes.
Okay.
And so I won't have that risk anymore. Now there's other risks, because I do have
Yeah.
endometriosis. So there is that.
Okay.
I have not gotten a hysteroscopy, whatever, pretty much like the cleaning of the scar tissue since my last one.
Yeah.
And that's been almost 4 years ago. So I have no clue how much scar tissue could be living there. A really crazy thing that y'all may not know about the woman's body is when you lose your tubes and you ovulate, your body, like, so every month when I ovulate now, I have extreme cramps that can like take me out for 24 to 48 hours. Like, no running, I can walk. Um, but pretty much like your ovaries, do its thing, but there's nowhere for the eggs to go. So mine kind of just expand. But that's a cool, fun thing. Not really, I'm being sarcastic, but a fun thing I deal with every month.
And then, like, period cramps, are they just about as intense? Or do you feel like you don't get those?
I think the ovulation's worse.
Yeah.
Crazy enough. Like, period, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I think I struggle more with the ovulation, which makes me wonder, did scar tissue grow back? Is it on, where is it? And so I'm probably going to have to go in and get another procedure, another hysteroscopy to clean it up before we even start IVF.
You'll have time to do that. The process to start IVF is a lot, and so I'm here to talk because it's a long process and it's a lot to even just process while you're going through it, because and we can talk about this next week too, but we just finished the process 2 weeks ago with adopting out our 3 embryos that we still had stored
Wow.
for 4 years. So there's even a process that you have to go through after you have a successful pregnancy and those embryos are stored, because you pay monthly to have those embryos stored. And so anyhow, that's an entirely different conversation, but it is still part of the process that you go through with IVF. I'm wondering if it's not like an insurance thing, because we had to, like I said, mine was 100% paid for, but insurance said I had to go through 3 IUIs before we could even have a consultation for IVF.
It's crazy how much insurance can play a role in your life. I've never heard of insurance covering it like that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, does it still cover it in Illinois with, because Katie, maybe we just need to move you up to Illinois and get you a new job, get you new insurance.
So it does have to deal with states though too.
Yeah.
And I live in a very deep red state, and unfortunately, they're not super big fans of IVF. And so we've talked about going to different states. We've talked about going to different countries like
Yeah.
Mexico, or where my little sister lives in Italy. We've had those conversations, but honestly, just for like convenience purposes, I'd rather just do it here. But yeah, the insurance, it sucks. I mean, there's no better way to put it. It sucks.
Yep.
I need y'all to know that I'm not a crier. So this, yeah, it brought up old wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. There have been thankfully, a lot of Zoom meetings where I could shut the camera off. People have said they're pregnant. And then I feel horrible for feeling bad that someone else is pregnant. And I was,
I know, I've been there.
Apologize to one of my very good friends. And she's like, and I'm pregnant and I didn't want to tell you. And I was like, I'm so happy for you, but I'm so sad for me.
Yeah.
So I had to have one of my friends at work tell another girl, hey, you don't go rub your pregnancy in her face.
Yeah.
Like, she's dealt with way too much, because she just went and was like, she got pregnant and it was just like shoving it in everybody's face. And I got really mad. I was like, that's not cool. You got to know that there are people out there that struggle, and that's not okay to just shove down everybody's throat. And so I told my friend, and my friend's like, girl, I got you. And she pulled her aside, and she's like, you do not need to do this to her. If you even knew half the stuff she went through, you wouldn't dare. And so then the woman got mad at her and me. And I was like, you gotta understand, there's traumas and like, you can't. So, but that woman no longer works at that building, and
and not everybody's open about it.
I mean, one of my good friends, she was struggling getting pregnant for years, and they were on their way down to a concert with her brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and it was her favorite singer. Like, she was so excited for this night, and they up and announced their pregnancy on the way down, and she was just devastated. Like, it ruined her night. Like, she had been trying, they're heading down to her favorite concert. It was just like why? And then it just caused ripples in the family for a while. It's hard because you want to be happy for them, but also it's like you said, it's like gut wrenching. It's just another letdown, and it's hard. And it's hard for the people who want to celebrate, but also when you have close friends, because I know, like, I've had several close friends who have struggled or who are still struggling, and it is hard when that subject comes up. Even if you're not trying and the subject comes up, it's always like eggshells. Like, you're just like, I don't know how to talk about this. Like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to say something wrong. Like, even me now, like this whole episode, I'm just like, I haven't experienced what you guys have. And I'm like, I feel like, okay, like almost not guilty, but it does make me feel like, I don't know the right words that I'm looking for.
I know what you mean.
Where I just,
I know what you mean.
I feel for all of you
You don't have to feel guilty.
And then it breaks my heart because it's like when somebody dies and you don't know the right things to say because you aren't there is right words. And even I think everybody's journey is so different, but I know we have so much more to hit on, so much more to talk about. And like Katie said, it's like an onion and there's so many layers to peel back. And as you're peeling those layers, the tears just keep rolling as we felt tonight. And I know Rachel didn't have a chance to share. So next week we'll get to hear more from Rachel, hear more about Becky's IVF journeys as we share with Katie and her journey. And we'd love to get some listeners who have experience or have stories to share, who would love to be guests and to share their journey or their advice. So if you have any experience or advice and you would love to have some input, reach out to us and we'd love you to join in on our podcast. We're definitely looking forward to getting some guests on our show.
Thanks for sipping and sharing a moment with us today. We can't wait to keep showing up with you each week. Messy, caffeinated, and real.
And if you liked what you heard, we'd be so grateful if you'd follow, subscribe, or share this with your teacher, bestie, mom group chat, or training partner, or all three. It helps more people find our little corner of chaos and connection.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Espresso Yourself Podcast. Tell us what resonated, share your own stories, what topics you want us to cover, or just come say hi.
Make sure to hit follow so you don't miss next week's episode.
Until next time,
Keep showing up.
Keep giving yourself grace.
And espresso yourself.
one sip at a time.
Cheers.